So the deadline for the Chuck Schumer amendment came and went a couple of days ago, and basically, if you don't know what that is, it was a deadline for the government to release UFO materials and files that they had to the public through the National Archives. Now, I made a video about it thinking that, well, they have basically now, between now and 2025, to submit as much information as seemingly possible. And I was one of the people that thought that this was either just not going to happen, or it was going to be incredibly heavily redacted information to the point where it was just completely useless and unreadable, because basically, you know, like some of the stuff that they would have to release is still under classification. So, you know, it's not available for the public access and stuff like this. But it would seem that on the quiet, some files have actually been submitted to the National Archives, and people are starting to pull it up and are looking very closely. And the reason I say that it's gone under very quietly is there's no big announcement that these files are there. It's just, shh, slide it in. Shh, slide it in. That's all it is. But ATIR report that appears to be from 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO flap. I had not seen these before. They could be new releases from the National Archives. So there is an opportunity or a possibility that this isn't actually new information, but there's a very high chance that this could be new information, and this isn't the only one. There appears to be new ATIR releases on the National Archives website. So it's definitely worth, if you're interested, taking a look on the National Archives website just to see if there is any information there. But let's have a little read of this one first of all. So, this comes from the Air Intelligence Information Report, and it looks to be a report of information on unidentified flying objects. Area reported in was Washington, D.C., from the DOI, so the Director of Intelligence, on the 31st of July, 1952. Date of information on the 20th of July, 1952. So the data report was 11 days after the date of the incident. Evaluation C2, I'm not sure what that means. Prepared by Second Lieutenant George H. Jankowski. I've butchered that, I apologise, but let's move forward. Source, Captain Casey Pierman, Capital Airlines, 172E Huron, River Drive, Michigan. I think that's Michigan. So references AFOIN-C/CC-2, 19th of December 1951, all the rest of it. So, summary. 1. This report contains information on unidentified flying objects as reported to this headquarters by Captain Casey Pierman of Capital Airlines, Detroit, Michigan. 2. Subject report was investigated by Second Lieutenant George H. Jankowski, and Major Sergeant O.T. Taylor of the Directorate of Intelligence, Headquarters, 10th Air Force, Selfridge Air Force Base, Michigan, and then it has been approved. So let's have a little read through. So this one goes on to state, on the 20th of July 1952 at 05:55, Captain Casey Pierman of Capital Airlines was in the cockpit of his DC-4 aircraft performing a checklist prior to takeoff from Washington National Airport, Washington, D.C. The aircraft was on the parking ramp heading 020 degrees. Captain Pierman looked up and observed a clear bluish-white light travel from 190 degrees to 010 degrees at 30-degree angle above the horizon on horizontal flight until it disappeared into the distance. Captain Pierman stated that he had to turn his head slowly through a 45-degree quadrant in order to observe the object while it's in its flight, and estimates that he observed it for 5 seconds or less. Captain Pierman states that he did not attach any significance to this light until later events demanded attention to it. 2. Immediately after performing his checklist, Captain Pierman took off from Washington National Airport on a heading of 180 degrees and climbed to 1,200 feet before making a right turn on the course of 330 degrees. Upon gaining 1,200 feet and course 330 degrees, Captain Pearman stated that he switched over from Tower Control to Airway Traffic Control Center, the ATCC, at Washington National Airport. At this time, ATCC informed him that that their radar scope indicated 2 or 3 objects on the screen traveling at high speeds. ATCC instructed Captain Pearman to steer 290 degrees so as to intercept the objects, which are approximately 9 miles ahead of him. At this time, Captain Pearman's rate of climb was approximately 600 feet per minute, and his altitude was between 3,500 foot and 4,000 feet. Immediately after ATCC instructed Captain Pearman to steer the course of 290 degrees, he stated that the following events occurred within 5 to 8 minutes in the order in which presented and at the approximate time of intervals as indicated. A. 3 to 5 minutes after takeoff, ATCC informed pilot that the objects were 5 miles distant dead ahead. 3 to 5 seconds later, the ATCC informed pilot that objects were 4 miles distant to the dead ahead. 1 to 3 seconds later, ATCC informed the pilot that the objects were at 10 o'clock. At this time, pilot stated he plainly observed a DC-4 type aircraft at 10 o'clock, level proceeding in the opposite direction. This information he reported to ATCC. D. 4 to 5 minutes later, co-pilot Charles Wheaton observed one object, bluish-white in colour, in a 25-degree dive from the northeast to southwest, travelling at a tremendous rate of speed. The co-pilot told Captain Pearman that he could neither estimate what altitude the object began its descent nor what altitude it faded. Captain Pearman stated that at this time his altitude was 6,000 feet and he could look almost vertically and see Charlestown, West Virginia. E. Immediately upon sighting Charlestown, Captain Pearman and his co-pilot observed a brilliant bluish-white light flash past from high over his left and disappear at flight dead ahead, travelling at a tremendous rate of speed and appeared to be outside of the Earth's atmosphere. F. Next, Captain Pearman and his co-pilot observed a brilliant bluish-white light reappear where the last light had disappeared from the flash from the past. Moving forwards, right to left approximately 80 degrees from the horizon at the travelling at a tremendous rate of speed. This light also appeared to be outside the Earth's atmosphere. Part 4. Captain Pearman stated he may have seen as many as 7 objects during as many minutes, but due to the fact that things were happening so fast, he had no way of keeping an accurate count of the number of objects. Wow. This is interesting. How they managed to keep this under locks for so long, I bloody don't know, but it's interesting nonetheless that this is what's come to light. So let's carry on reading, because obviously this isn't the end of it. So 10th Air Force Director of Intelligence comments. So this is the comments then of the people investigating. The interrogators, Lieutenant Janskensky and Major Sergeant Taylor, are of the opinion that Captain Pearman is reliable and conscientious. He has been a pilot for 24 years and has piloted for Capital Airlines for 17 years. Captain Pearman stated that during all of his years as a pilot, he had never seen anything that would compare with the objects mentioned in this report. He further stated that he is thoroughly convinced that the objects he observed were travelling at such tremendous speeds that he would not attempt to estimate the rate of their speeds. 2. Captain Pearman stated that the ATCC at Washington National Airport had the object on radar scope. Due to such an unusual circumstance, there is a possibility that the scope photographs were made providing the equipment was available. 3. Captain Pearman also stated that ATCC contacted the tower at a Bolling Air Force Base and queried them for any knowledge of the objects. It is not known if such targets had been plotted by Bolling Air Force Base. The following is offered as suggestion. Due to the tremendous speeds of the objects and the inability of the observers to determine the exact altitudes, or even if the objects observed were in the Earth's atmosphere, there is a possibility that there is some connection between a previous report, AFXOI, Flight OBRPT 4-52, and this report, since they occurred at approximately the same time. So basically, these are the wind speeds and all the rest of it at Washington DC. Visibility 10 miles, clouds negative, ceiling unlimited, weather at that time. Interesting. So here's the winds, and you can see the surface in knots. And then as we float through to the end of the report, it looks like some kind of flight path from which every section that we've read out from the report kind of took place from Washington DC through to West Virginia. So I mean, that's really interesting. So we can see here kind of a tally. So one, making checks. So basically this is the checklist of what we've just read, and this is the flight plot of what happened, and then this right here is the runway to which Captain Pierman took off. And as you can see, this is all based as confidential. Hella interesting stuff. This is not the only report that has been released, though, as there seems to be a lot of other reports that are just kind of suddenly popping up out of nowhere that no one's ever seen before. There are sources coming out of my ear holes with these. So if you want to hear some more, be sure to let me know down in the comments. But what do you make of this? Is this the Chuck Schumer amendment coming into play? Is this the government releasing this information that we were expecting? Or has this just always been sat here? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. While you're down there, be sure to jump scare the hell out of that like button. And until next time, I'll spook you later.